In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to use the airbrush in Photoshop for coloring comics, pinups, illustrations, and any other art you want to create. So make sure you stick around to the end of the video to learn a thing or two. If you are new to this channel, I make art tutorials for coloring comics and I share beginner artist tips and advice for young artists starting out and seasoned veterans. So you can click the link above to check out other tutorials I've made, and be sure to subscribe to my channel to see more content that I'll be putting out in the long run. So first things first, once you come into Photoshop and you come here and choose these are your tools in Photoshop. Now this is the brush tool. Everyone who uses Photoshop should know that. I mean, it has an icon for a brush, so definitely you know that's the brush. Now I'm using a digital tablet. I'm using the Intros Pro. So if you right click on it, it will show you different brushes that you have. So these are, you actually, when you open this, you have like default brushes. If we come to this one, this is the soft round airbrush. It's the default soft round airbrush without any noise turned on or any what they call it, pressure sensitivity, nothing. It's just the default round soft brush. So it just makes all your blobs and strokes really soft and smooth, so you get these smooth transitions when you're moving from kind of when you're brushing in colors, you have this smooth transition. So now for beginners, when you come in here and you try to work with this, you will see that it's not working out. You need a harder brush to do this. Now one tip I would advise you to do is, when you want to use the soft round brush, you should pair it with the lasso tool. So with that selection, I use Command H to hide my selection. Once you hide your selection, you can get harder, sharper cuts and selections, so you still have your gradient. Now you can see this side where I selected is hard, whereas here, because I'm brushing in lightly, is soft. So this is just the bread and beans of this technique. There is no other really secret big deal about the technique. Is very easy to use. All you have to do is just make a selection of whatever shape you're trying to fill in with your lasso tool or any other selection tool you want to use, and then you just brush into the shape gradually, just filling it in depending on how much you want the color to show through or how much light you want to be in the shape you are filling. So let me just show you some more examples. Say we have this, we can just fill this in with a neutral gray, right? And we can then start breaking it apart and making some sides darker than the others. So it's just a really quick way to kind of fill in your forms and have everything read with like a graduated gradient. So you're not just having a harsh strong line. You're having this gradient of color with your brush. So let me just show you how this is going to work in your image. So for anyone that hasn't seen this particular video, I already did a tutorial on using photos as a reference guide and then editing the picture so you can see the shape of the light form using some tools in Photoshop. So if you haven't seen this tutorial, I think you should go and look for it in my channel. It's probably called one trick in Photoshop or something like that, but I can still leave a link just at the top so you can go and watch this video if you haven't watched it. And don't forget to leave a like on that video if you enjoyed that little tip for helping you color faces. And yeah, don't forget to leave a like on this video too and share it with a friend so YouTube will know that yeah, this Nigerian boy is making some pretty good content. Thank you very much. You're far too kind. So anyway, in Photoshop now. Oh wait, we've been in Photoshop since. So anyway, as you can see, I'm just using the lasso tool to select the planes and shapes that I have on Wolverine, and then I'm using the airbrush like I showed you earlier on. I'm just using the airbrush to gradually fill in the area that I want the color to affect, and I'm using the brush slightly. I'm just gradually brushing it in. I'm not just brushing it very hard, because if you press the pen down very hard, that's if you're using a pen tablet, if you press it down, if you put pressure on the pen, it will leave a very dark, it will allow a lot of color onto your image. So if you press it lightly, it will just I mean, you know what it sounds like already. Now it will apply the color lightly. So you just want to press lightly, just brushing into the forms just a little bit, depending on the area or the form that you're trying to render. So as you can see, for the hair now, I'm just brushing in towards the middle, because that's where is going to catch the most light, especially for hair. Now you can go and watch my other tutorial I made for how to color hair, and I can explain exactly how I approach coloring hair like this, but it's basically the same thing. So hair is going to catch light towards the middle, so that's why I'm brushing in lightly towards the middle, and then I'm selecting the catch highlights, where that's the parts of the hair that's catching the lights, the highlights from the light source, and then I brush those in with a lighter color. So right now I've selected the jacket, and I'm keeping everything on Wolverine. If you haven't noticed, I'm keeping everything brown or grayish brown. So even his jacket, if you look closely, you see that it's not towards blue, it's brown, but it's very desaturated, so it looks cool and it's looking like it's towards blue, but it's still brown, it's just desaturated. So the only thing that I'm going to have that is going to be blue on him is going to be his shirt, the shirt he's wearing inside, and probably the glass cup he has in his hand. So one thing I really noticed I love about these inks by Rory Coleman, if you don't know Rory Coleman, you really need to check him out. He's a really fantastic, amazing inker. He's worked for Marvel. I really love the way he draws. He has so much understanding of how folds work against a body, against a physique. He just knows how to draw his folds well. So it wasn't really difficult for me to figure out how to render the jacket, because he had already put in enough information, enough detail in his folds for me to know the directions and the patterns I was going to create when I was rendering the jacket. So one thing you can do is just follow the patterns, the inker, or if you're the one drawing it, follow the patterns you have already created for your fold. So don't just go against the flow, don't just go against where the inks are, where the line is showing you to go. So if the line is curving down, you want to make a selection and follow that selection down, just follow the shape so everything fits well together and looks like it's a solid piece. Right now I'm just still using the airbrush. I really don't use any other fancy brush unless I'm trying to do some texture in the background, or I'm just trying to paint in some texture on his jacket. For everything else, for doing all the base colors, I'm just using the airbrush, and I'm keeping the selections tight and following the form of the jacket. Now, as you can see, I'm using lighter colors just to kind of catch the highlights where the light is hitting the jacket, and I'm not pressing down entirely, I'm just pressing slightly, so it will just the gradation won't be too prominent, to be gradual. There'll be a gradual gradation, and then I kind of have really bright harder cuts for the shoulder part because it's a flat surface. If you think about the shoulder is, if you think about the shoulder as a three-dimensional plane, the top is going to be flat. So I like having the flat planes. I like having them have flat and sharper cuts, and then where the planes that are edgy, that are curving downwards, I can now then smoothen them out. So that's how I usually approach coloring characters, coloring clothing, coloring anything that has, basically everything that has three-dimensional form, just to make it feel three-dimensional and to make it feel really solid, to make all the forms read, basically. So before I started painting this glass cup, I had to go on Google and just Google and just wait, that just sounded funny. Go on Google and just Google. So I just went on Google and searched for a glass cup to see how it reacts, because I kind of have an understanding that when light hits the glass, it will go through it and then it will reflect at the opposite side. But I wasn't really sure of this, my understanding, because it had been a long time before it's been a long time that I did any glass studies or stuff. So I just went to look at it again to remember how it works, and I think I was right a little bit. So when light hits glass, it shines through it and then it hits the bottom, and then that will now reflect back upwards and kind of fill in the other portions of the glass. So you have to just keep that in mind when you're rendering glass, or when you're rendering any other transparent material that absorbs light. It's the same thing as subsurface scattering, but this time it's actually the same thing, because it's following the same principles that light uses when it comes through your ears and hits the ears and spreads within the skin. It's just the same thing. It goes through the glass, hits the glass, and wait, is it even the same? Anyway, you get the idea. If don't take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt on this one, so you have to go and study your own glass cup so you can pretty much understand it for yourself and see how it works. Because right now I'm talking about it based on my own understanding, and I'm not even sure right now as for this one. So I'll have to go back and join you guys and do the studies again, so that I will refreshing my knowledge. You see, we're all learning in this together. So let's all not just forget and think we've learned everything. No, learning never stops. So as I keep on making these tutorials for you guys, it just helps me refresh my knowledge and keep me on my toes. So I'm still going back and doing studies and remembering some things that I haven't been taking into note or using in a long while. So I'm having fun. So if you're learning anything from any of these videos, don't hesitate to leave a comment, leave a like, and let me know any suggestions you have for videos you want to see later on in the future, or maybe just later on within this week, because these days the way I'm dropping videos I know some of you are asking questions, what's happening now? Anyways, this was my process. I think very soon I'm going to do a tutorial on how to. I love to give a special shout out to my Patreon supporters. Thank you for letting me do what I do. And if you love to support my work and my channel, you could go down and click the link in the description to subscribe to my Patreon page. And with all that being said, I will see you in the next video. Peace.